teachers, the teachers, the teachers, the teachers.
My brothers and sisters of color, we gotta do better. No survival in this era if we turning on each other. Like a family reunited, they hate it when we together. Now let's talk about it. Listen to the teachers, let them tell you. You want facts behind your questions, Dr. Rick, give them the answer. Followed by wise words, introducing Dr. Michael Blanchard. Many guests and activists every week leading by example. When there's problems, there's solutions. Together we are the answer.
The teachers.
All right. Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here with my ace, my buddy, my colleague, Dr. Michael Blanchard. Together, we form the Teachas, and we're here for another episode. I want to apologize. Number one, we're getting started a little late. That's because we were waiting on our guest who we've had on before, filmmaker Tony Lindsey. We wanted him on because he's been on a tear the last few weeks about a lot of things that's going on in media and in politics, and he has been on a tear. And we wanted him to get on and talk about a lot of the hot topics, but to give some context and perspective to it. And he said he was definitely honored, but we all know things happen, and so we're waiting on him to show up. But in the meantime, we got to keep things rolling because both of us have very busy schedules, and plus, we want to try to, do it the way it's supposed to be done. It happens, and we're okay with that. We're both flexible. We're going to talk about these topics that he's been talking about. We're going to give our opinion. We're going to give our perspective. And the beautiful thing about the friendship that I have with Dr. Blanchard is that we don't have to agree on everything. Matter of fact, I think that's the beauty of our relationship is that we have our own ideas. Now, because we have a focus on the same result, it's easy for us to find the genius or the brilliance or the beauty in the differences, because that's what makes a group strong is the diversity in philosophy, the diversity in everything. So we're about to talk about some things that we probably haven't discussed because both of us have been busy. Doc has actually been back in his home of South Bend, taking care of a couple of things, one of which was to take care of his aging mother, which I admire him for doing. But also, he's been working with the artist who you just heard on the intro, the Teachas. That was the first single on something, and I'm gonna let Dr. Blanchard tell you about that. But he was up there working on the video for the complete version of the single, which will be dropping in, I guess, about 30 days, from what I understand. So he just got back into Florida, where he's doing work in the Broward County school system, and so we're going to get into all of that, and that's what I want Doc to talk about first. But we're going to talk about some Will Smith. We're going to talk about some Russell Wilson and Ciara and Channing Crowder. We're going to talk about some things that are popping off in the community that we need to give attention to, and hopefully Tony pops up. Because he's real good about this, but things do happen, and then he's a single father too. So, I personally know how that goes. Things happen. It could have been a soccer game that he forgot about or something like that. And, I just know that he's normally very professional in the way he moves. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We're going to keep moving. So, Doc, he was up in South Bend handling business, and talk about that.
We decided to do a music video for the Teachas after we got the track produced in late January 31st. I believe we went live everywhere, and we decided to do a video. So over the spring break, our spring break down here, I went home to, like you said, to do two things: get mom in a assisted living facility, and to work on the music video. So I had never done that before. It was very interesting. One of the gentlemen, his name is Ernest Davis, is the producer of the music video. And I looked at some of his work, and he's done some very good work before up around the region area. The region consists of Chicago, East Chicago, Gary, South Bend, Elkhart. And we took about a day. We had some kids, treated them to pizza and everything. We had a classroom set up.
Right,
So
right.
burgers and pizzas and everything afterwards. But we started at the classroom scene, and you'll see it probably in about 30 days. It's going to be a really fun video. Sane is very and he's very good in the under the camera. He also almost becomes a whole different person. A lot of people do that. When the camera comes on, they become a whole different person than what you know. And so when I was watching him perform, I was like, man, you become insane. But yeah, it was fun to do. It was fun to do, and also it educated some of our youth on the business side of it. They're able to talk to the music producer and talk to Sane, and they're able to show young people that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. A lot of young people, we look at videos like we used to look at videos when we were coming up, Yo MTV Raps and all of that, and we don't understand all the business side of it that's behind the scenes, all the opportunities that exist in music behind the scenes, other than just being on the mic. And I know you can speak to that because you've been in music. There's so many different avenues being a music producer. There are writing opportunities.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people really understand the complexity of the process of the finished product and what happens from the moment of concept and idea through production, development, so many sides of it. Then you finally get to a finished product. Then you still have distribution and marketing, and so much that goes into that. But just getting it from a point where it's a beat in your head to a beat in somebody's headset is a process.
It is.
And then the videography that's now tied into it that became real big in the early 80s. And now it's just an expected part of the package is an entire different process in itself, because now you're taking what's going on in music and you're merging it what's going on in film.
Mm-hmm.
So you got film production, music production merging, and you've got to make it mesh, and you got to make it tell a story. You got to make it meet, and you got to have it, and you've got all these personalities. It's so much that happens from the beginning of it, and it's a beautiful thing when it's done right. I know I've had the pleasure of knowing some people who do it exceptionally well. And so I'm really looking forward to being a part of people who are the new up and comers who I see talent in. And obviously Sane has talent, and I haven't met the other guy yet, but I'm assuming that at some point we will meet.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited about that. So,
and it's a lot of work. I didn't realize, this is the first time I got into it. It's a lot of work, because you have a lot of different platforms you have to deal with. You have to deal with the airway media, the streams, the music stream side of it,
right.
And you even have another side of it where, it's the stream, the media, the streams, the on-air media, and then you have the digital media. It's three different mediums that you have. And then there's also one where you have to register that so that when you perform at a club, there's also another form of payment that comes out to artists. And I didn't even know about that until I got into it and started talking with people. And they said, hey, there's like four streams of income for artists. So you can actually, as long as you're registered in this medium, I can't remember the name of it, but as long as you're registered in it, when you perform at a club, no matter how small, as long as it's a legitimate club, and you go in and put your date in there, and there's a number that the club has, you put that in there, then you're paid another stream of income for performing. I didn't know that.
Right. Like I said, man, it's really crazy. A lot of people don't realize that when we talk about industry, even when an artist is signed to a major label, an artist's primary income, the bulk of their income isn't from record sales, it's from touring.
Absolutely.
And so it's a lot. But I mean, what I like now is that artists are able to have a lot more control when they go independent because of these streaming and digital processes. And so I'm excited about what we're going to be doing in that in the long term. Okay, let's switch gears real quick. Something that we haven't had a whole matter of fact, I think the first time that we even mentioned it to each other, because you've been doing your thing and I've got a lot going on. I think the first time we mentioned it to each other was yesterday when we talked on the phone. But this whole Will Smith thing and what it's become and what it is, the Will, the Chris Rock, the Jada, the whole nine, and does it even have a place in the conversation of what's happening in Black America? Is a question I had to ask myself. And the answer to me was yes, because it's a microcosm. Now, while the vast majority of people can't really relate to their lifestyles because they're living an elite lifestyle and they're operating on another different thing, the problem becomes, and why we have to talk about it, is that we live vicariously through them. That they are how most Black people experience success. Mm-hmm. And we don't talk about this vicarious reality. And so when I started to look at it, I had to start to break it down because a lot of people got triggered by that slap and they don't even know they're triggered. That was the first thing I thought about. How many people got triggered on both sides of the slap? How many people got triggered because of Will? How many got triggered because of Chris? How many people are judging Will because they don't like Jada?
Right.
If he had been defending Beyonce, would it have been the same thing?
Right.
Because there's a certain persona, there's a certain thing going on with Jada right now that everybody's not vibing with. Right. And so all of those different things. So when we talked about it briefly yesterday, I kind of gave my point of view. And what I want to talk about, and before I get to that, I need to apologize. I need to apologize to all of the people for that come to the Black Voice channel. I posted a video several days ago that was entitled Channing Crowder Calls Russell Wilson a Square. And I uploaded the wrong video. So people were saying, hey, this is clickbait. You know, when are you going to start talking about Russell Wilson? And luckily, I was reading some of the comments because sometimes there's so much going on. And plus, I don't get involved in back and forth. I give you what I have. And, you know, if somebody asks a question, I try to answer it. But trying to argue my point, I don't normally do it. So I don't always come right back. Well, I happened to see, you know, a couple of things pop up. And it was that I actually uploaded the wrong video. So I apologize. The new video that I actually addressed that is there. I want to talk about something. It says someone with the handle Intense Passion says, deal with Black children in schools who are failing at numbers you can't count. Black men talk about celebrities and wealth, but refuse to address boys and girls in these schools and communities. What that tells me right now is that's a person that hasn't watched this channel. That tells me that's a person who hasn't been aware of what we do. What's 90% of my focus? Youth. What were we talking about? What were we talking about before we got on?
Well, we were talking about how we're looking to try to get into the school systems and socialize our young men and our young women. And that's what we were talking about.
Okay, so let me be fair to the person who said this. They are very valid in their concern, because here's the thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Close to over 90% of young Black boys in the 8th grade read below 8th grade level. That's the reality.
Yeah.
We're underperforming in schools. I also wrote a position paper and started a program, and it's also in my last book, my 24th book, Academic Apartheid, which tells you I focus on education with Black youth. That's not the first book.
Right.
My first book on education was my 16th book, The Miseducation of Black Youth in America. Okay, but in Academic Apartheid, which is probably laying around here somewhere, matter of fact, in Academic Apartheid, I talk specifically about how they're using special education referrals, special education referrals as a means of alienating young Black boys and increasing. For instance, real simple, you take an average student on average, regardless of the school district around the USA, they're going to get between $8,000 and $10,000 a year for that student. You put a special education tag on them, oppositionally defiant, ADHD, learning disabled, any of those special education tags, and that doubles. Now, here's the problem. Very rarely does that extra money actually go to educating those children with those challenges. What it normally goes to is because the school principals are actually who get to control the vast majority of the budget for their school. When you get to high school, that money goes on sports because sports makes the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's on new uniforms, updating stadiums, all kind of crazy stuff that but the money was intended to create a better environment for a student to learn. What happens is young Black boys get alienated early in the process, and that leads to the high dropout rate. And that leads to the high dropout rate, which then leads to high incarceration rates. So I get what they're saying they're on, but the idea that because we're talking about celebrities, we're not talking about the things. Matter of fact, I tell you what, I get on this channel, and you can tell it kind of got to me what was just done, because I get on this channel every day. I've written, I don't know how many books. I'm on 24. I'm writing 25 and 26 now about the empowerment of the community. It's always dealing with the issues in the community because I'm in the community. I'm dealing with those boys. I'm the ones that their mamas are bringing to actually have something happen at a high level. So here's the problem. I get on here every day and I talk about the work we're doing in the community. Black Men Lead, Rite of Passage Initiative, the socialization of young Black males, which reduces their proclivity to violence, reduces their criminality, reduces their violence to others. And I've asked for support and help. Back in December, we started a fundraiser just to raise $10,000. That $10,000 is actually far less than it costs to run the program in a week, if we're going to be honest. And that's on a local level. You're talking about a national level, it's bigger. But just to say, so come share some of that with me. Come share some of the load. That was 3, 4, almost 5 months ago. We haven't even raised $1,000 yet.
Yeah, and Doc, that's what I was going to add before you said that. You know, you and I have been working together since 2013, and you know, we don't. Not only do we not want to participate and actually volunteer to work on the socialization of kids and mentoring programs and tutoring programs, wraparound services, we don't even want to finance it. So,
yeah, I mean,
the person's comment is very valid, but to say that there aren't grassroots people out here that are working on the problem, it's a vast problem, and it does take money and organization to address it. And I always say, hey, if you don't want to get involved, at least finance it. Finance the people that are doing the work. And
right.
There are people out here that can solve this problem, reduce the violence in our communities and schools, and increase student growth and student persistence. Student persistence meaning what it takes to graduate and
right.
go to college or get a trade or whatever you choose to do in your professional development. We know that we can do this, but the problem is that we don't have the soldiers out in the field, and we don't have the right organization and structure, and we don't have the financing to do it. Most of us are out here financing it on our own dime.
And I've been doing that for years. And so that's the thing. Since that was pushed out, and I, like I said, I get it. There goes Tony. All right. Hey, what's going on, bro?
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, brothers? You know what? I'm so sorry. I wasn't sure of the time or anything. I just got out of the gym. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We're just glad to see you, my brother. And your face does look smaller.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna get into all of that. We kind of got we were about to jump on
Yeah.
giving context to the whole Will Jada thing, and then somebody made a statement about us needing to be focused on black boys and black girls, which is actually 90% of what I'm focused on with my content, with my work every day. And so I kind of got off on a little tirade about it. But the whole thing is,
Right.
people will talk about that, and you know it because you're doing some work too. And it's one thing people will want and demand that you focus on something, but then they won't get behind your work.
Yeah, but the honest thing, for me, most of the people who kind of criticize us for talking about the subject, from my perspective and from my experience, a lot of those people, they do that more from like a defense mechanism type of standpoint. Like if you feel like it's almost like when someone makes a point that you don't want to hear, or someone is giving you a perspective that you just don't jive with, they automatically want to say, oh, well, let's stop talking about that. Let's stop talking about that. And, you know, this whole Will Smith Jada thing, for me, it's more of an indictment of us. And it's not so much about their personal marriage as it is about how we are as a society and our expectations. So, you know.
And that was the point I was making. I'm going to actually reread the statement because I think that the person had a valid point. But what it shows is that a lot of times we speak on things without knowing the totality of what we're speaking on. Okay. Right. And what they said is deal with black children in schools who are failing at numbers you can't count. Well, actually, I can because I know the numbers because this is what I do. I was on the phone with a mother yesterday who I've worked with before with her school district. I've gone as high as the school superintendent in defense of her children. And then it became a community thing in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, which is also a place now where there's a black couple who tried to buy an old school in Charlotte and ran into a bunch of discriminatory practices to try to block them from buying it because they're trying to do something positive with it. The school isn't even open, but they don't want them to own it. But I got on the phone with her because they are targeting her son again. And so this is what I do. So I understand I can count the numbers. I can tell you how many feel. I can tell you that 90% of 8th grade black boys aren't reading at 8th grade level. I can tell you that. I can tell you that how that's going to impact them as they move forward. We're talking about over 90% of these kids are functionally illiterate. Okay, I understand that. The problem has to be addressed earlier in life. Number one is your kids should be able to read before they start school. Number one.
That's right.
A love for reading should be instilled in them before they start school. They should have a passion to learn before they start school. And don't tell me they're not old enough. Children are born wanting to learn. That's what when a baby's putting something in their mouth, that's their first way of exploration. They discover everything through their mouths. Eventually, they're going to start to listen and hear, and they'll start to develop and understand language, but they're going to always be observing. They observe things. They see things. That's why you got to be careful what you do in front of them. That's why they are great emulators, because they learn. So I get that. But, you know, the thing is, it says black men talk about celebrities and wealth, but refuse to address boys and girls in these schools, in communities, when the truth of the matter is, that's all I do. So, but notice that it's black men that talk.
Well, right. That's what I was going to.
Black men talk. Well, no, everybody has been discussing this, and it hasn't just been black men. It's been everybody. And I was giving the reason why I deemed it to be worthy of conversation in a discussion that's or a forum that's focused on black empowerment. Here's why: because the vast majority of blacks are living vicariously through other blacks who they deem successful. If it's not movie stars, it's rappers. If it's not rappers, it's athletes. We live vicariously through people who are experiencing life at a manner that we don't believe we ever will. And that comes from a whole different thing.
But we also take upon a responsibility. I mean, when you think about it, you know, if that remains at the top of the discourse publicly, I mean, would not that be our responsibility to enter that discourse and pull it back to a way for people to understand how it affects, you know, the larger community? Like, we can't just ignore it and say, oh, we're just not going to talk about that, even though that's the only thing everyone else is paying attention to. That doesn't make sense to me. I think it's our responsibility to, you know, insert a little bit of logic and critical thinking into it. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I wouldn't even get triggered by that stuff, you know, at all. You don't need to.
You're right.
There's no disclaimers, no justification. I mean, please, we're not here to make people comfortable, you know, and that's the thing for me. I'm not here. I don't speak publicly. I don't engage on social media for the purpose of making other people more comfortable. I engage in order to inspire people to think, challenge them to think. So that's it. If we got to get more comfortable being uncomfortable.
And until we do that, how many times have I said that, Doc?
Hey, he's got a quote.
Hey, my whole thing
about black people being the most uncomfortable people.
Yeah, you know, he asked me probably about 7 years ago about why are we where we are. And I said, because black people have become the most comfortable people at being uncomfortable. And what I meant by that wasn't because they're being challenged in that layer of uncomfortable. I mean that we complain about everything, but we do nothing. So that tells me if you're complaining about something, but you're doing nothing to change it, you're actually comfortable with what you're complaining about. And you actually find the solace in complaining. I know a bunch of people.
Well, right. When you find the solace in complaining, that's why I say we have to challenge people to actually become uncomfortable. You know, you're not really uncomfortable.
Not really uncomfortable
until you're challenged.
You're uncomfortable. This is what I know. Everybody here has achieved something at a high level.
Right.
Everybody on this screen. It doesn't make us better than anybody, but it gives us a platform and a license to be able to speak on what it requires to function at a high level.
That's right.
Okay. The first thing is, I can tell you, as an athlete, I've been a professional athlete. As a business owner, I've started 47 companies. As an author, I've written 24 books. Okay. So when I decide to do something, I do it exceptionally well. It doesn't make me better than anybody. It just makes me responsible for being who I am. I've watched you. Your work is exceptional. I've watched Doc go through his processes. He's been consistent. He's always on point. He knows where he's at all the time. That's keys. But this is what I can tell you. At no time, you haven't told me your whole story, Tony, but we've been around each other. But this is what I can tell you. At no time did you get to a point and complain about something not being the way you wanted it to be and didn't do anything about it.
Exactly.
Okay, that's when you're actually not comfortable. Right. You can say, I don't like it. Oh my God, it's getting on my nerve, all this stuff. What you actually been done is trained to complain.
Yes.
You've been trained to complain, but you're not uncomfortable because I'm telling you, you can lay in bed. I can tell you when you're in bed, when you become uncomfortable. You know how I know when you become uncomfortable? You shift.
That's right.
You don't lay there and go, oh my God, my back is hurting me in this position. And stay in that position. You shift. Everybody who's uncomfortable makes a move to change it, even if it's not the right move.
That's right.
Okay, so when you got a bunch of people and all they do is complain, you got to talk about why that is.
Right.
Now, so my whole point of bringing up Will and Jada was, why did they get triggered? And why is it? And there's so many questions that come out of this. And the reason I asked you on is because you came out and you were talking about a bunch of these different contexts and the way you frame things. And that was huge. Okay, so the first thing that I saw was, we're going to discuss whether it was right or wrong. And then you can get into a bunch of different logics. And because I'm not a person who's dogmatic, I'm always looking for the ways that I may have been wrong initially.
Same.
And I'm studying and say, maybe I was wrong, and I'm letting hindsight feed me. So I've evolved in my first response. My first response was alpha male, cat, you up here talking about my woman, and I'm in the building. And if you're truthful about it as a man, that was ego driven. My response was ego driven. Even though I'm defending my woman, I'm also acknowledging a part of the reason I'm defending her is because for you to disrespect her with me sitting here, you're also disrespecting me.
Right.
Basically, when I grew up in hood. If my girl with me and you come at her sideways and you see me standing here, you're basically calling me a bitch.
Yeah, that's right.
You're basically calling me a bitch. You're saying, I see you standing there, cat, and you don't mean nothing. I'm finna get dead off on your girl with you standing here. You are basically telling me if I don't get with you, I lost the respect of my girl, and not every other cat gonna be disrespecting me and my girl. I've got to check that. That's instinctive. That comes from something back there. You're supposed to mature and you're supposed to grow, but that's the instinctive. Now, in hindsight, the first thing came to me when I started to look at it in hindsight after I done got out the initial thing, because I don't watch the Oscars. The fact that they banned this dude for 10 years means absolutely nothing to me because I don't watch it. It doesn't mean anything to me. I watch what I enjoy. I could care less. But I know it means something to him in his craft because they made it mean something. When the truth of the matter is, Denzel, I'm going to tell you when I stopped watching the Oscars. When they gave Denzel an Oscar for Training Day, I stopped watching the Oscars. You mean he wasn't good enough in Malcolm? He wasn't good enough in Man on Fire. He wasn't good enough in John Q. He wasn't good enough in any of those films where he really just owned it, where he established his stuff.
And I actually thought he was better in those other movies.
Right, he was much better in those other movies. But he had to be a dirty cop for you to give it to him. And to me, that wasn't close to his best performance. I'm done with it. And so it made me really start to see for what it is. But here's the thing. When I thought about it in hindsight, I'm going, well, if he can walk all the way up there with nobody stopping him and get that close to Chris, and Chris is leaning over, he could have whispered it is, say, dude, say one more word, I'm going to fuck you up. And that would have got the same response. Chris would have shut up because he would have saw it. But in hindsight, that's expecting him not to be in his emotions. That's to ignore the fact that he wrote in his book that he's felt like a coward since he was 9 years old because he didn't stop his dad from beating his mom.
Right.
Okay. So all these things are triggers. Now you go ahead and you add some context to it. I could go all day on it.
Well, there's a couple of things. One thing, that I say is that we can't dictate a person's reaction to abuse, right? We can't dictate how a person is going to respond when they're emotional or they're in an irrational state. So that's one thing, right? And I think what's missing from a lot of this conversation is empathy, I think, and context. Now, earlier you were talking about, Will Smith going up there and, and we agree that that was like protecting his ego in a certain respect. And, you also mentioned him protecting his wife, right?
Right.
See, the thing is, we think so much in terms of exclusivity that we don't understand that both things can be true at the same time, and from what I see, it wasn't even only protecting his wife. In his mind, he was protecting his family. He was defending himself from constantly being inundated with ridicule, humiliation. And the funny thing is, most of the people who are moralizing about how wrong he was and how terrible he was, they'll never step back and say, well, damn, did we play a part in his mental state, in that moment? Are we part of the cause of why, over the past 2 years or so, always being in that business, always, calling him a weak man and this and that? Do we have a small role to play in this? I think a lot of the response to this has been based in our interpretation of what their marriage should be, which mirrors what we expect. Listen, if they're comfortable in the way that they are, more power to them. But
there's a lot of hypocrisy because in America we talk about monogamy, but the majority of us practice polygamy.
Now that's some truth. Now that's some truth for your mind.
If we're honest with each other, for real.
Yes, that's true. But there's something about the male ego when you hear about a woman, being intimate with another man.
Right.
That's a real shot to the ego. And I hate to say it. Listen, as a man, I know what it feels like, when you feel betrayed by a woman, or to see a woman you've even previously been with another man. We know what that feels like. So for a lot of even the men, like, I sit back and listen to them, all these guys that are criticizing, well, it's Jada's fault. It's Jada's fault. It's Jada's fault. She treated that man so bad. This and that. Like, for me, it's like, are you angry at Jada because you're angry that Will forgave her when you know that you wouldn't have forgave her? You mad that he tried to protect a woman that you definitely would not have protected after she cheated on you?
Right. There you go. That's the point I was going to get at, and you brought it back around. I'm glad you did. The whole idea that because of what she's done, she doesn't deserve to be protected.
Protection. Right.
I'm not a fan of Jada. Jada needs a lot of healing. Jada's got a lot of issues, but we all do. Yeah. I don't like how she disregards him because I've seen a bunch of times where he's like, hey, turn the camera off. Not right now. And she keeps going. Yeah. And she wants to put everything on that red table and nothing's sacred. Well, yeah, I don't care how you define your marriage and what's acceptable and not. It still has to be treated sacredly. Right. The marriage has to be sacred, and that sacredness may involve other people, but it shouldn't involve everybody. Okay, now that's the first thing. There are certain things you can share about your marriage. Hey, this happened, that happened. But when you get into the intimate details, and then you expose a man, let's be real. You expose a man at a point where you know he's vulnerable and he's weak, to show his vulnerable and his weakness to the world, then I have a problem with it. But let me explain something. And then I'm gonna let you take it back. When all these men are saying because of what Jada did, she didn't deserve to be protected, I disagree, and here's why. If my wife's not a cheater, that's the one thing I know about her. Anybody is capable of doing anything, but right. I just know her background. I know her history. Mike, you know her history. She's been very vocal. She wrote it all in the book. There's a lot there that makes her who she is. I'm not perfect. She's not perfect. That's something I work. But I've been cheated on before. Okay, so I know how that feels. I know how it feels to be betrayed. But first of all, I'm not a person that judges women on a different spectrum. I'm not a person that thinks, well, men just gonna be men. But if a woman cheats, oh my God. No, if you don't want to be cheated on, don't be a cheater. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. If you're expecting somebody to be straight and loyal to you, then you need to be straight and loyal to them. Here's my problem with the idea that Jada doesn't deserve to be protected. The moment that Will said we're going to continue to work on this, we're life partners, she deserves everything that you're going to give your woman. If she can't have it, she's not your woman. Okay, so if I'm not going to protect you, then that means I don't really forgive you fullness, or I can't let go of it. So I can't be your man, because part of being your man means if somebody stepped to you wrong, I got to deal with that. And if I can't do it, then that means I can't let go of what you did, and I have the right to walk away. But I'm not going to say stay and then treat you less than.
Right. And see, but that ties into what I kind of wanted to interject before about Will Smith. We assume that he's not a willing participant, or he's not making a conscious decision to accept whatever these circumstances are, to accept the conditions that he is dealing with. I mean, even when you said, for her to be putting him out or putting his business out there, I mean, but isn't it with his consent? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We don't know.
Right. What we do know is, even if it's not direct consent, it's silent condemnation, because you're not doing anything about it. Because you could easily sit up and say, no, I'm not sitting down at that table. No, cut that damn camera off. I'm leaving. And I know one point he did walk off. On one of the videos, I say he walked off. Right.
She was doing like a holding the phone or whatever. Yeah.
And she just turned the camera on and asked him a question out of the blue. And I'm going like, okay, but what we got to understand is, here's the thing is, I'm not a fan of where she's at right now and how she's handling things in a bunch of different ways. But what I can tell you is she didn't get there just by saying, you know what, I'm gonna go out and this is the person I'm gonna be.
And I'm just gonna take over this man and take over this marriage and do this and that, and he has no say.
So if I want people to understand me from where I come from, then I've got to be willing to do the same. And that's the beauty of being who I am, being a therapist, being a consultant, being a person who helps people get their life straight, is I can't come in being judgmental. And the one thing that my clients know is this is the no judgment zone. It's nothing you're going to tell me about your life. And I'm going to sit up and go, oh, damn. And then I'm going to judge you about it because we all have been through some things in different varying ways. And, you know, I can't judge you on that, but I need to know where you come from so I can help you get where you're going. Okay, so if I'm going to give that out to everybody else, I can't look at her and say, ooh, it's just something about her. And it is. That's that thing to me. When I see her and I look at her and I go, you are destroying a family.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she's doing it on purpose. So then if she's not doing it on purpose, she's doing what a bunch of people are out there doing. Trauma creates more trauma.
Right. But
Right.
I don't think she's doing it on, if she's doing that, I don't think that she's doing it on purpose, but I also don't think that she's doing it alone. And that's what I think that people are missing when it comes to the context of this. You know, this is, you know, even when they talk about how Jada has been, you know, tied to these other men, Will Smith has been tied to other women. They're open about that shit.
Well, it's clear that they have an open marriage. That
everybody knew that. Like before all of this stuff was so public, everybody knew this. And in part, I kind of feel like they just became open about it because everybody was kind of talking their business anyway. So she decided to monetize it. Now, me personally, I'm not going to open my personal business, like the super intimate details out there to the public because I have children, I have a family, all of that. But at the same time, you know, when you're celebrities, see, I don't really want to, I can't justify it for them, but I guess I can get it. That whole excuse that, you know, we're celebrities, we want to serve as inspiration to people. Some people think that by sharing their personal stories that they can impact other people's lives and help them. You know, maybe that's their route. But and which then again opens them up to criticism, right? But
answer a quick question for me because I'm seeing some things roll down the chat. A real quick question because I think it's a philosophical engagement, but I want from your philosophy.
Right.
If two people come together and they form a union, and within this union, there's an understanding that other people can be involved. And as long as other people are involved within the constricts of that agreement, is that cheating?
No.
Cheating presents itself as in you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
Right. It's cheating, you know, it basically speaks to deception. But you got to remember, both Will and Jada have been interviewed, and they both said, and I think Will recently said it. He was like, listen, there's never been any infidelity in my marriage, and there's never been any surprises. There's nothing that has ever happened that I did not know about. So what does that tell you? Like, it's like, come on. Like,
okay. So what I think is, again, and you alluded to this. Well, no, you didn't allude to it. You directly said it. And that is a lot of people are projecting.
Yes.
A lot of people are projecting. And what projecting is you're looking at somebody go through an experience and you're experiencing it vicariously. Through your lens of how you live your life and your experiences. Yes. And you're getting triggered.
Yes.
And you're getting triggered for it. You know, but here's a big part. Because we as men, I want to talk specifically about men, because we as men aren't allowed to feel, because we aren't allowed to admit we can be hurt, because we are always good. I have to tell people sometimes that I talk to a lot when I'm like, hey, how's everything going, dog? What's up, dog? I'm good. I'm like, hold on, come here, man. You can't be good every damn time I see you. So if you're not good, that's one of the reasons Doc and I have remained close, is because I cannot be good.
Oh, right. That's right.
You know, I cannot be good, and I can sit down and say, hey, man, I'm going through this right now. And he not gonna get mad. I'm not gonna hear suck it up.
Right.
Because that's what I've been doing. I've been sucking it up. I'm talking to you now because I need to release. I've sucked it up so much that I need to let it out. And then I can come to you and you can say, man, I can feel that. And that's what it is, man. I can feel that. And Doc, just on our conversation yesterday, how many times do you say, man, I can understand that, man? I can feel that, man. We weren't talking about our marriages. We were talking about our kids.
That's right.
Hey, man, I got 4 daughters. Trust me, man. And so so that's the thing is we need more conversations like that. We need to give our men permission to feel, because what happens is when you start making a man emotionally
unstable,
right?
Actually.
But he becomes emotionally callous because he's not allowed to feel. Because he keeps taking these emotional hits, but he's not processing them. So he becomes callous to it. So he pretends not to feel till he starts not to feel, and then there's that moment.
That explosion.
Guys who have these psychotic breaks and they hurt people, it's because they've said they don't feel, nothing can hurt them, and there they are hurt.
Right, and see, this is such a multifaceted conversation, because even when we talk about how black men pretty much aren't expected to feel, right? They aren't expected to be emotional. When you look at let's just look at how people have treated Will Smith over all this time. You have memes of him and other black men crying. Like, those are the big jokes. Like, some of the funniest, so-called funniest memes, they always include black men in moments of distress. That's the fodder for our humor, our jokes. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a fundamental lack of respect for black men, but at the same time, remember, Will Smith, he's a pretty likable guy. You know what I'm saying? People love him. Guys love him. Women love him. Some do say he's kind of corny, but he's safe. He's a good representation of black male excellence, right? Well-rounded. He's kind of a leader in his industry. So when he breaks, when he cracks, it can't be his fault. And this is my thing. They need someone to blame. And this is why I say kind of a double-sided coin, because I see a lot of people focusing their vitriol on his wife, taking away all responsibility for what happened from the grown-ass man who walked up there and slapped another man in the face. And for me, that speaks to an infantilization of black men, that we can't think for ourselves. We can't act on our own unless it's somehow motivated by someone else. Like, the battery got to be put in our back by somebody else, because we can't think enough to act on our own. So I just think there are different angles to this. For me, what disturbs me personally is there's a couple of things that disturbs me, but I think there's a lot of hypocrisy, and I think this whole thing is missing a lot of elements. And the thing is, when I talk about this issue, I talk about it from all sides. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna. I try not to be biased. I try to hear every side and see every perspective. So on one end, I see an infantilization of black men, but then at the same time, I also see a demonization of black men. A disproportionate demonization of black men. So in a way, it kind of depends on who's talking about it at the time. But for me, the one thing that's always missing from the conversation is us, is society. It's the anti-black misandry that undergirds this whole discourse that we're not really allowing to enter into the conversation. So that's why I don't mind talking about it, because I like to hear the perspectives, but I want people to also look at things more critically and not just look at this as, black on black crime, like what a lot of people are saying. Or a lot
right.
These black folks is making us look bad in front of white people, like Fat Joe said. And let's face it, Fat Joe is a white Hispanic who has been spewing the N-word forever. Like, okay, you accept into the culture, boom, whatever it is. I like Fat Joe and all that, but at the same time, what gives you the right to now say, oh, he made all minorities look bad? Why do we look at the behavior of one individual of celebrity as a representation of the whole? Why does Will Smith's actions are a reflection of Will Smith? It's not a reflection of all black men. And I'm tired
that is a social construct that can be traced all the way back to slavery.
Yes.
That one, the behavior, man, I can tell you growing up, I was reared by my great grandparents. So I'm talking about people born. My great grandfather was born in 1909. My great grandmother 1917. So you're talking a generation removed from slavery. So they literally knew slaves.
Right.
They literally knew slaves, and so the behavior was real close. And I can remember growing up, being born in the late 60s and growing up in the 70s. I can remember sitting around and the news came on. It wasn't cable TV, so about 4 or 5 channels, and you had 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock news. And I can remember being in another room and listening to the news as my grandparents watched it, and it'd be on, and a suspect did XYZ, and the suspect did this, the suspect did that. And before they could even get to it, I could hear my grandmother going, "Please don't let this be a black man." Why? Because we have been conditioned to believe everybody's going to be judged by that one person's actions. Yeah. And so we take everything that another black person does personally, especially when we've placed them on a pedestal because they have exhibited a certain type of excellence or behavior. We don't give them the space they need to be human. Now, being human doesn't mean you get a pass on doing stupid stuff. It means that when you do stupid stuff, we know that, hey, you're not perfect. Okay, I probably can look back at my life and look at some things and say, okay, I'm not perfect, and then we deal with it. Here's the other thing to this though. We don't want to talk about this, and it's ugly, and it's the depth of the trauma and how we expect ourselves not to have to confront trauma in a way that we become better. You can't tell me that a book that just got released, 6 months ago? And in the first entry, early in the book, this kid is talking about the fact that everything that he has done in his life, all the accolades, all the awards, all this stuff is contaminated with the fact that he still carries around the feeling of being a coward because at the age of 9 years old, he could not stop his father from beating his mother. His father hit his mother so hard that he knocked her down and knocked blood from her mouth. Yeah. Okay, so he's carrying that. He just reconciled with his dad before his dad died. Right. Okay, so he's carrying that around. He hasn't, and I understand that he's gotten treatment for it. But what I'm saying, if you don't properly deal with, psychoanalytics is not a way to deal with trauma. It never has been. That's why there was so much difficulty in dealing with PTSD early on, is because psychoanalytics in and of itself, sitting down talking to somebody about your problems, don't change it. It'll help you process things. What happens with trauma, when you're dealing with trauma, you're talking about a physiological experience as well as a mental experience. And I think Dr. Basil van der Kolk has probably been the best at explaining how the body actually logs and catalogs trauma, and so that it's in your cellular structure. If you don't find a way to integrate it, first of all, into your linear timeline, what does that mean? That means that what happens with trauma, that's a thing called traumatic memory. With traumatic memory, what that means is your regular memory is when you remember something, your brain automatically tells you that happened in the past. You can have some different emotions about it, but it's not a threat. It's not a threat because it's in the past. I can remember it. I might not like the memory, but the memory is no harm to me. It's just a bad memory, or it's a good memory or whatever. The problem with traumatic memory is you're re-experiencing it. It's still a threat. Right. So at that moment, you're acting out of that threat, and you don't know what triggers it. And and the thing is, the idea that you invested in counseling doesn't mean that you got what you needed. It doesn't mean that you're finished. And so, and again, I'm not making an excuse, because we're all responsible as adults for our actions, regardless of what we've been through. One of the things that we have to understand, but we have to get a hold of it. And again, a lot of people are triggered in this because they see themselves in it in one point, shape, fashion, or another. And they're triggered from their own perspective. So they can only see that perspective because that's the emphasis on which they're living their lives. Right. But if you cannot afford this man some grace, some empathy, after a 30-year career of excellence, being peaceful, being a role model, doing everything right, standing as the poster child for everything great. If we can't afford a little bit of grace and mercy to this man in this one moment where he slipped, what does that say about us?
he got slapped with like a 10-year ban from the Oscars. Number one, I don't really care about the Oscars. Nobody was watching the Oscars anyway. Like, and that's another thing. Like, I thought we weren't even dealing with the Oscars as black folks anyway. Like, what happened to Oscars so white, and the fact that they overtly, it's an overtly racist institution, in their like almost 100-year existence. We have so many firsts and onlys, So for me, I don't really care about the Oscars. But once again, Will Smith, in the eyes of so many of us, he acted up in front of white folks. So we had to go up in arms, and it had an effect of putting the battery in the back of so many of these white Hollywood people who took our full outrage, and they transmogrified it into their own personal trauma. they turned it.
They're experts at doing that. They're experts at doing that.
Yes.
They're experts at doing that. And the whole thing is that
justifies disproportionate punishment of black men once again.
Spectre, Woody Allen, Weinstein all have Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
And all have done far more harm to others than Will Smith. What was outrage?
Violence isn't okay. Like physical violence in front of our faces isn't okay. But rape and pedophilia and those types of things, that's just fine for the Oscar.
Right. Okay. Again, I could care less about the Oscars, but I'm talking about how this thing is playing out and how it's being projected. So that's that part. Someone mentioned, actually a colleague and someone I hold dear who's in the mental health profession, is that because of Will's wealth, that he should have been able to afford the best therapy in the world, and this should not be an issue. And what I can tell you is, I know people who are flat broke who have gotten the healing, my wife being one of them. Well, now she's not flat broke now, but she came from poverty. And she found a way to heal because she saw the need to. What happens is the fact that Will is wealthy is one of the reasons why he's not healed, because you can hide a bunch of stuff with money.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to understand that having money and having access to something doesn't mean you go after it, when you can sit up and you can cover your fallibilities, your fallacies, your shortcomings with that money. It's so easy to sit up and say, look how strong I am, look how good I am, because I'm financing this, I'm funding that, I'm getting behind this organization. Again, he's done so much over the course of his career that we consider exemplary, that we saw him in a light that he never really was in. He wasn't whole. He wasn't healed. He's definitely not perfect. But the idea that because he's wealthy, he should be okay is not fair, because most people use their money to hide their weaknesses and actually end up expanding them.
But even with that, the most expensive treatment doesn't necessarily equate to the most effective anyway. I mean, if you think about it, people in poorer conditions, communities, they tend to experience, more trauma, more real, real shit. Excuse my French.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I would expect that a professional that deals with these types of problems that regular folks deal with all the time, maybe they may be more effective than someone who has to deal with someone who's a super multi-millionaire and has so many great things happening in their lives. Not to say that their lives are better, because we understand it's stressful, but I don't think you can put a monetary gauge on the quality of
you cannot not from the history of where I'm looking at things. I'll give you a prime example. How many times do rich people put their kids in rehab facilities? The best. I mean, the absolute best, and they fall right back. Right. They literally become cycled out residents in these places where they're spending $50,000-$60,000 a month for treatment, and they come out, and you get the person on the street go through a rehab process that was free, and just have made up in their mind that they can't do it anymore.
Yeah, sometimes that intersection of this treatment with their own, privilege, it just doesn't work. It counteracts each other. I'll just keep doing what I do. I could just go get some quick treatment in 6 months and then go back and have some fun later.
Right. and here's another thing that I learned, you know, having had some success with money at a much higher level than I am now. I'm not starving now, but definitely having, what I can tell you is money will cripple you because you think you can fix everything with it.
Yeah.
And what'll happen is you'll miss the opportunity for the authentic moment of an opportunity that is presenting itself for you to do something exceptional because you feel like you've got it. And we live in a society that praises it. So how many people are actually being out there being praised for dysfunctional behavior? Almost all of the celebrities out there.
Yeah.
Right.
You can see from all these celebrities. I mean, money doesn't fix, trauma. It doesn't build self-esteem. In a lot of ways, money only amplifies, the real issues that are going on with you. And you can see it, with a lot of these, like even rappers, and you immediately, like, once you get money, the first thing you want to do is go and prove to everybody that you got money.
Right.
Yeah, they're just a dysfunctional person with money. That's all.
Yeah.
Money definitely amplifies, and a lot of people think money changes. No, money. Money.
I think money reveals you. I don't.
No,
think
money definitely reveals you. Money amplifies and gives you a chance to really show who you are. Because this is what happens when you get money.
That's right.
The things that you felt you had to do in order for people to accept you or give you opportunities, you don't have to do that now.
Including respect them in some cases.
Right. I don't have to respect you. I can say what I want to say. I can do what I want to do.
Yes.
And ultimately, you get to see who they really were now that they don't need to play along. When you have the average person who needs their job, and I tell people all the time, you've been sold on a lie your whole life. The lie is we live in a moral society. No, we don't. We live in a society that's governed by consequence. And people present the fact that they abide in a certain part of that construct because they fear the consequences. There are a bunch of people that are alive because their mates didn't want to go to prison, not because their mates were moral. There are a bunch of people who haven't stole a bunch of money because they don't want to go to prison. There are a bunch of people who are still in a marriage that they don't want to be in because they don't want to split half. Okay, I can go on and on. So it's not a moral decision. We live in a place where consequence governs the vast majority of what we do, even if we don't want to admit it. That's the truth. Okay, right. So in this instance of all this stuff that we're judging, what we're getting is people who get money. Now they can be who they want to be. And you get to see who they really are. And I think if we're going to judge based on that, I think that all the things that Will has been through and all the things he's done, he's not perfect, but I think he's presented pretty well over 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right, there we go. So welcome back, Doc. So when I look at that, I say, okay, over the last 30 years, he's had a pretty good career. He's carried himself in a pretty good way. He's done a lot of things. I'm not real big on fandom. I'm not a fanatic of anybody. I'm trying to live my life. I'm trying to be the best I can be, but I admire people. I admire people for how they move in their own way. And so I can sit up and say, I like what you've done. But to me, there's also an influence of Hollywood that nobody wants to talk about either, and how that can impact someone. So I get it in a bunch of different ways. I don't think there's a one totally right answer or one completely wrong answer, but I think when you try to narrow something into a box and make it fit your narrative without a complete understanding of the totality of what's going on, anytime you start saying, well, it should have been done this way, and if it wasn't done this way, then it's absolutely wrong. You're assuming that person lived the exact same life you did, with all the exact same influences, all the exact same situations, and they are thinking exactly like you with the same emphasis on everything. And that's not being realistic. It's not being fair.
Yeah, we don't accept the fact that other people won't always think like us, and that doesn't necessarily make them wrong for not having the same, belief structure as us. And so we project, our honestly, I think we project our own biases, we project our own ignorance, onto other people because we just can't relate. And that's why I really, when it comes to this conversation, people are missing a lot of nuance. They've made it kind of like one direction. And that's where I always find issue with this conversation. And someone said to me, it was like, yeah, because I put up a post, something that said, like, I'm less concerned with Will and Jada's marriage as I am with this government, that is, actively, trying to take away my right to raise my children and is, targeting people economically and things like that. And I get it. Somebody was like, yeah, but you've been posting about Will Smith for days. Yeah, but I've really been talking about us. I haven't really been talking about their marriage because I could give a damn about their marriage. That's not my business. It's not doing nothing for me. Since we've designated Will Smith's actions as the representation of the Black community, why can't we discuss how this actually affects us, or doesn't, or shouldn't? You know what I'm saying? So for me, the people that usually object to us talking about it are usually the people who really have no thesis. That's been my experience.
Doc, what you got to say as we get ready to close out?
Well, I was going to say, before we came on, you and I were talking how, and I don't know, I'd like to know Tony's opinion about this. We were talking earlier, Tony, and we agreed that there really is no right or wrong answer here. There is no, you have people in either, Will's camp or Jada's camp. There's really no right or wrong answer here. And like you said, and you've posted, I've read most of your posts on it. You've been using it as a teaching moment. You haven't really taken a side. You've been just using it as a teaching moment for our culture and identifying also the rift between black men and black women, or we call it a culture war. You've been dealing with that. So how do you feel about that? I kind of feel there's no right or wrong answer.
That's so interesting. That you say you've read most of my posts on it and I haven't really taken a side. That is the absolute truth. But most of the people who read my posts would assume that I am taking a side. And I think that is a very good display of our own internal biases and our inability to see things for what they are, you know what I'm saying, without taking offense or having our defense mechanisms take over. We have to learn how to get to a place where we're willing to accept, new perspectives, alternate points of view, without labeling people as you hate black men or you hate black women or you know what I'm saying? Because I think that's the laziest form of discourse, when you dismiss other points of view just by labeling people, so
real quickly, I knew that this was going to happen because we weren't getting to it quick enough, and I'll be the first to apologize for that. But I there's a big point I wanted to make on this, and somebody just posted about it, so it's perfect time. And they said, "Why isn't anyone concerned about Chris?" I actually am concerned.
I was just about to say that.
I am concerned about Chris Rock because I went back and I looked, because this is what I do for a living. I went back and I looked at the aftermath of him on film after it happened, and he was triggered. He was in his own place. And what people don't realize is Chris Rock was beat up as a kid, a lot. Okay. Yeah. And he was even beat up and robbed as an adult to where he had to get therapy for it. So he was triggered. That's trauma there for him. And what you had is two black men's trauma coming together. And we aren't ready to have that conversation easy. So yeah, I'm concerned. There's nobody that's going to come out of this unscathed.
Right.
And the thing of it is when we start to judge from this platform of perfection, first of all, it's immediate hypocrisy because we don't possess perfection. Second of all, we don't take the time to do what we have done over the last couple of weeks, which is critically break this down. And like I said at the beginning of this show, I don't even know if you were on yet, but I said, because I'm not dogmatic, I'm ever evolving and trying to learn. I have developed new opinions about this as I've gone and I've studied and I've examined myself and I've examined everything that's going on. And so my response initially wouldn't be my response as I thought it through. But a lot of times we aren't given the opportunity in moments to think things through. One of the points you made that's so important is when you trigger someone, you don't get to dictate their response. Something my dad taught me a long time ago, and it wasn't even as heavy as it is here, but it was real simple. He said, once you violate a man's space, you don't get to dictate how he responds. And what he meant by that, and you can see this in several levels in what happened. He's saying, you think up, you go get in a man's face, and you're spitboxing with him, and he pop you. You're gonna sit up and say, I didn't hit you. You didn't have a right to hit. Yes, you did. The moment you violated his space, you put yourself in a situation where you couldn't dictate it. Or if I slap you, you can only slap me back. Or if I punch you, you can only punch me one time because I only punch you one time. When the truth of the matter is, once you violate somebody's space or you violate their sanctity, you don't get to dictate how they respond. It doesn't matter whether they're wrong or right. It doesn't matter whether they were the valid in their response. It's that you triggered something when you made a conscious decision to do something. You open them up. Now, there's so many different ways you can look at that and see this applied here, and say, okay.
I think that, you know, sometimes we play by these unrealistic rules that just really they're fake rules. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to throw a stone and then hide your hand. And I think, and I did want to talk about Chris Rock because from several angles, though, you know, I know it's all about Chris Rock as the victim. He's you know, he was such a professional, and I think he took that. He handled it like a professional, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Because after getting smacked in the face, you know, I know how I would have responded, but I see he kept the show moving. You know what I'm saying? He was a little flustered, but hats off to him for doing that, right? But at the same time, I cannot ignore the fact that Chris Rock has been going in on Will Smith and Jada Smith for years. And from what I have heard behind the scenes is that they don't rock with each other like that, right? So isn't it possible that Chris Rock, seeing how Will Smith is kind of used to always taking all of this abuse, was kind of obligated to continue taking abuse and disrespect? I think the only thing that changed here was that he did it right in front of that man's face. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And couldn't have had a compounding effect on what was already being built up. I mean, because at the last Oscars, he was going a little hard on them, especially Jada. And personally, this is not for me to justify or whatever, and I hate disclaimers. He always got a little extra salt in the stuff that he throws at Jada. That Will. But go ahead.
Okay, here's the thing. You're making a valid point. And I think you have to look at all this, and I did. Okay, when there was some movie that Will didn't even get a nomination for, that Jada took to heart personally, and she went to bat for Will because everybody said nobody.
So did he. He took it to heart as well. But go ahead.
Yeah. But okay, so they came up with Oscar So White, and they were asking black people to boycott the Oscars that year. Right. Well, that same year, Chris decided to cross the picket line and accept the offer to host the Oscars. Perfectly his choice. First joke off the table.
Is it about them?
Straight at Jada. Okay, so, and this goes on, so it's over and over again. Now, I don't know how true this is, but from what I understand is this is Will's big night. Almost everybody is already aware of what's going to happen tonight in this past Oscars. And Will understands that if you're the big guy on stage, that the comedians are going to take shots at you. Now, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard it in more than one occasion. You're probably more exposed to it being a filmmaker than I am. I heard that Will told Chris, say anything you want to say about me. I know I got to get roasted tonight, but leave Jade out of it. Now, and the first thing out of Chris's mouth, I mean, literally, is aimed at Jada. Now, here's the thing that people talk about. Will slapped Chris because he's much bigger than Chris and he felt safe. Well, here's the thing. I've been digging at you and your woman for about 4 or 5 years easily, and nothing's ever happened to me. I feel safe too. I feel safe enough to say what I want to say. And then, you know, that's it. We lost him. Hopefully he'll get back. But my whole thing is, there's an idea that access to access to counseling, and I'm looking at this conversation that's going on in the thread, means automatic access to healing. And if that was the case, most people would be healed. It's not that simple. I've been doing this thing for years, and I've had some pretty powerful mentors that's been doing it for decades before me. And it's not that simple. The problem with people who are in trauma is that they're dealing with things from the perspective of their trauma. And if you don't have the ability to get next to them and actually get them turned into their healing, it's not a skill set you learn in the classroom, first of all. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's a part of an empathy process, an empathetical process of being able to. So what happens is, no, that's okay. What happens is, with me and my clients, I work best with clients that I can relate to. Why? Because there are going to be certain places we go to that they first of all, they may not be able to vocalize or articulate what they're feeling. But if I've been through it before, or if I've dealt with it enough, I know. So the more people I deal with and help in this area, the better I become at doing it. And again, the problem with people who are affluent is they are the last people to get help because they can hide behind their money. You find some of the most screwed up people are the people with money. Why? Because I don't have to play by anybody else. I can be rude. I can be non-social. I can be a bunch of different things that other people can't do, or they'll get fired, or they'll go to jail, or a bunch of other things. And so we have to really, truly be honest with ourselves in this and say, okay, I guess my hardest thing when I look at this is, we want to judge this in a vacuum, but apply it panoramically. What I mean by that is, you got to literally extract this one thing away from the rest of the things he's done to paint him as this horrible person, because nothing else shows that. Now, you might not like his choice and the way he has his marriage with his family and all that stuff, but I can tell you, I was reading a piece from Michael Ealy a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he wanted to punch Chris Rock, because back when they did the movie, what was that movie Chris Rock did with Anthony Hopkins back in like 2000? Oh, your mic's not on for some reason.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot the name of it. Where Chris Rock played his twin brother or something like that. I remember the movie.
Right. Okay. So in that movie, Michael Ealy had a small part. He said Chris Rock treated him like crap.
Oh.
And he remembered it, and he held a grudge. And he said after, in about 9 years later, his career done taken off. He's doing all these movies, and he runs across Chris Rock again, and he says Chris Rock came to him and say, "Man, I see you doing your thing. Congratulations." You know, I remember back in the day. So he said the fact that Chris actually remembered him and that he was nicer to him meant a lot. And it took that chip off his shoulder, because that, he said, but he says, the way that I work with people, the way that I am now that my career is on another level, he says, I took a page from Halle Berry and Will Smith. He says, when they're on the set, they call every person on that set by name. They speak to every person every day, and that's how they treat people. They acknowledge people and they treat them. Chris treated me like I was trash the first time he met me, because I was an up and comer. He wouldn't even call me by my real name. And so what I'm saying is, I said I like to say, Will Smith has this record of doing things a certain way. He gets out of line one time, and he's the worst person in the world.
Exactly.
To me, that's the problem. I don't know any perfect people.
Right.
Was he wrong? Hell yeah, he was wrong. But I could care less about how we look in front of white people because they don't care about me. And the ones that do care about me understand how I feel about my people. I have white friends.
Right.
And they care about me. They understand. I care about my people, and I'm going to speak the truth. If me talking about how white people are in general bothers you, we're probably not going to be close because I'm not going to pull my punches to make my white friends comfortable. So they understand that, and they stay out the lane. They don't even comment on stuff. When I get to going, they know where they belong. And that's the thing. But what I'm saying here is, so I could care less about the Oscars. I could care less about what white people interpret it because I've seen your dirt. I know your history. I know the stuff you've done. I know a bunch of the stuff that we're arguing about people doing right now is because of how you treated us.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to let you sit up and define how I respond to one of my brothers.
See, now, I just don't like to see us embolden white people to once again engage in heavily punitive behavior while making something that really don't have shit to do with them about them and their trauma. They're masters at doing that. And it just kind of annoys me to see us always playing into that. You know, and the excuse, oh, well, wrong is wrong, right is right. Yeah, but I don't never see y'all with that energy for anybody else. So, you know, if we would take that same energy that we've been throwing into Will Smith for having that one moment in 30 years where he stepped out of pocket, and you would take that energy and put towards, you know, these same people that hate you, maybe we'd see a little bit of a difference. But, you know, it's whatever we're courageous enough to tackle.
You got to be courageous enough to tackle that. And right now, Will Smith is a low-hanging fruit, despite the fact that he's celebrity, despite the fact he's a low-hanging fruit now. You could literally hate him, and everybody will be okay with it. Because
but what's funny is a lot of the people who have been talking, like who've been going hard on Will Smith, a lot of those people are now complaining about the extra heavy punishment that was handed out to him.
Well, you embolden that. What you don't get is
exactly
when they sit up and they see so many black people come in and go at him the way they did. They are calculative.
Right.
They're not acting off of emotion.
To teach them a lesson, especially teach these black men a lesson.
We're gonna give you this trophy, but then we're gonna break you down and we're gonna marginalize and minimalize it. Now again, my question, I guess, because I deal with people so long, I'm always asking why. My question is, with you having such a career where you walked the line and you did things the right way, you finally get your acknowledgement, and that's the day you chose to go completely left.
But you gotta ask why. His mental state in that moment. You gotta
ask why. You gotta say, how do you get to this point with no real blemishes, and now you finally get this thing you've been fighting for all your life, and that's the night you decide to go left.
Yeah, but could that have also been the night when they decided to really trigger you on purpose to sabotage you? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Why use that moment? I'm just saying, why use that moment? And I heard the same thing too, that Will Smith was like, yo, do whatever you do, but just keep my wife, you know, her name out your mouth. And his reaction seemed like, to me, a man that had previously warned you not to do it. So could it be that you use that moment to kind of set him up to be out of pocket? I don't know. I just know that it seemed pretty obvious that Will Smith was under a lot of pressure and that he does not like always being, you know, the butt of the jokes, him and his family in public view. Come on. Everybody knew that there was some tension between Will Smith and Jada and Chris Rock before this. Why is everybody acting like they're brand new and they don't know anything about this? You know, for me, that's corny. That's just corny. I'm just saying that's corny.
So to you, it wasn't just the fact that it was a joke. It was who the joke came from.
in Will's eyes, I think that, see, that's the thing. If you're the person who's being abused, you're already being abused by everybody, right? Everybody's, and remember, you can't really fight back against social media. You can't fight back against public opinion and the constant, abuse. But Chris Rock, in that moment, could have represented all of these people out here who have been talking so much shit about him and his wife. Right. And Chris decided, oh yeah, and I was the leader of the pack at the Oscars. Let me do that again now. And I'm gonna do that right in front of that man's face. And people talk about, well, he laughed. Come on. First of all, the Oscars, like all of these settings in Hollywood, that's like that is the playground for all of the fakest polite laughter, the disingenuous smiles. We know what that is. You laugh at the corny jokes. That just comes, it's par for the course. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. What I saw was a man that was, politely laughing along. And do we know that? I mean, maybe it clicked in his head, like, hold up, wait a minute. And then coupled with seeing your wife, you know what I'm saying? And the camera was not on Will long enough for us to see like a transition of emotion anyway. So people are saying, yeah, you looked at your wife and she gave you the look. We don't know that happened because the cameras, like, it was like a quick jump of the camera. You didn't really see what happened. You just saw Chris talking and saying, uh-oh. So we don't know.
Right. And here's the thing. I hear so many things and opinions, and that's what they are. They're opinions based off of your understanding and your reality.
And conjecture. Right.
Right. Okay, so if someone says, like I just saw a post and I'm going to address it, and I don't mean to do this in any way to attack anyone, but I want to use it as an example. Someone said that wasn't in any way a malignant statement. That is, to me, one of the biggest violations we have in our community, is that you're judging how you feel about something and saying that's how another person is supposed to feel about it. Because so when she's saying that joke wasn't malignant, well, that's in your opinion.
And that's your opinion.
Okay, so that's the problem. We literally operate like that.
Yes. All of the people who say, oh, well, the joke wasn't that bad. I mean, G.I. Jane was a positive, strong figure. Like, come on, bro. It was a joke to make fun of her having a bald head. Like, that's just what it was. Because you may have found it not to be harmless, or you found it to be harmless, it doesn't mean that the butt of the joke is going to feel the same way. So that's a lazy excuse to justify that man, allowing his wife to be humiliated in front of him. We don't know. So why are we so set in our opinions on in one thing when it kind of saves us from accountability or being viewed as possibly part of the problem? Oh, it wasn't such a big deal anyway. I mean, he really overreacted.
From a perspective, again, this is what I do for a living. So from a perspective of self-image, self-image comes from a bunch of different places. It comes from the label givers in the beginning, but ultimately it's the way you see yourself in the world and how you function in the world. And it's going to dictate how you move, how you behave, everything. Your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-discipline, all of it is going to be a reflection of your self-image. Okay, so, all right, here's the thing. Are we going to pretend that someone saying something negative about you doesn't have a negative impact? Okay. Oh, but we were taught in school, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The truth is, words are far more damaging than sticks and stones.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the truth. That's the truth. That is beyond a shadow of a doubt. More words have caused more damage than any physical harm could ever cause. People are literally living lives based off of other people's opinions of them every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are assuming because somebody is getting last for something. And I'm out the Oscars. I'm in the comedy club now because I've watched this. I've watched comedians go work the room, and everything they say about someone is negative because that's where you get the jokes. Society's not gonna ask why. It's funny for other people to be talked about. You don't understand why. As long as he don't get to me, if I can avoid his ire some kind of way, if he doesn't pick me out of the crowd, I'm better than the people that he degraded. Okay, we're not gonna answer that. So the whole idea is when someone says something negatively, it has an impact. Now, how much of you is self-identified and you are anchored in? So I'm at a point where you can't say anything about me that's gonna make me so upset then I'm gonna lose it because I know me. But I also know I did a lot of work to get here. And
Right,
that was
and
a
not
time that
everybody
you
else.
couldn't talk to me like that.
Right.
That was a
And
time you couldn't.
yeah, but remember, even culturally, like the dozens, we think that it's okay to insult each other and it's supposed to be funny. It's okay to insult each other for entertainment, but we never really think about the impact that it may have on people who have real insecurities, real issues that they're dealing with. To make a fat joke about somebody who's been struggling, with their weight for years and really feel self-conscious. So so for me, we can't do that. We
I'm gonna
can't
give you.
pretend that
I'm
words
gonna
don't
give
have
you
an
a prime
impact.
example. I'm gonna give you a prime example about high perception. It was perfectly okay to take that shot at Jada. And again, I'm not a fan of Jada, but to take that shot at Jada about her head when everybody who's on social media knows she has alopecia because she's been that vocal about it.
Oh,
Okay,
now they're saying she's lying about it in order to justify the abuse,
but that ain't it. Check this out. So that's not that malignant for him to go directly at her head. First joke, directly ahead. That's not that malignant. Let somebody go after Lizzo about her weight and watch how they ride.
Right. That's the point that yes.
Watch how they ride. Say something about Lizzo's weight. And
Say something about the trans community. Say something about a transgender that's sitting in the audience and saying, yeah, he got a big Johnson probably, or whatever you're going to say. Make a joke about a transgender, like, I don't even know which, like the male to female one, and say, you're not coming in my bathroom or something like that. See how everyone will be up in outrage about that.
Right. So the thing is, that's my point. One thing, that's just comedy. No, it's not just comedy if you come over here and everybody loses it when something similar is done. The thing is, because you don't like her,
it's okay.
It's okay. But if it was Lizzo and everybody, my whole thing is, Lizzo, that's your life. I don't care how you look. I am concerned about your health. If your doctor's giving you a clean bill of health, that you do your thing. And I don't make it a habit of talking about anybody because I'm not perfect. Number two, I know words hurt. I know the hardest core person is probably that hard because they got picked on a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so they've taught themselves not to feel. That's a dangerous person because at some point in time, they're going to be reintroduced to their emotions.
Yep. And you better get out the way.
And you better get out the way. The moment that they find out that they can actually be hurt, they're going to hurt somebody. Because now all that work I did to make myself impervious to all that stuff that's coming at me, I'm still vulnerable.
And sometimes at the moment when they realize that they can actually fight back or hurt someone else, which is what I was talking about with Will Smith. Maybe he just feels like the abuse is something that he can't control. So he has to take it. But he don't have to take it when that man is standing right there in front of his face talking about his wife. So, especially dealing with the previous trauma. I mean, that's real. If you feel like you were not a man or you were a coward for allowing the most important woman in your life to be, for not protecting the most important woman in your life at the time. And now you got the most important woman in your life, your wife, sitting next to you. And you're now in a situation where you feel like you're not protecting her. A lot of stuff is going to come up. So
Tony, do you think because of this whole incident now, you're going to have even more censorship now?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you think we'll have more censorship in entertainment events like this now because of this?
See, but that's the thing. When we say censorship, I mean, I don't think this is an issue of censorship. I mean, because even in comedy, people understand that there's a line that you don't cross, especially when you know certain people. I don't think the joke was really that bad. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know their relationship. I don't know what boundaries may have been set beforehand. And you know what I'm saying? And even in comedy, people know when, okay, we've been going, look, you can gauge when you're doing too much. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think this is a good argument for like censorship. I mean, well, I just think that there should be more responsibility in your craft. in any of the arts, whether it's comedy, whether it's music. We see how hip hop music, everybody says, oh, that's just an art form. But you got this drill music now where everybody is nothing but guns and drugs and all of that. I think there should be more responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Even with Jamaican, like I'm Jamaican, right? And you see how that group Soldier just run, the white group, they won the Grammy for best reggae album of the year.
Right.
Over
I'm of Jamaican descent too, so
right. So over Jamaican artists. But then at the same time, there's an argument that says, well, in Jamaica, we've kind of abandoned reggae music for a lot of this crass dancehall thing with nothing but gun music and a whole bunch of other things. So it's like some people will say, you kind of handed it over anyway. Yeah, you don't really respect the culture or what we have anyway.
Yep. They have handed everything over.
I think that you make a valid point there when you talk about responsibility. Somebody said that this is the nature of comedy. The court jester would insult anyone, including the king. They're allowed that. Will should have contained himself. But
that wasn't a comedy show. That wasn't a comedy club. That was the Oscars. That we understand that they tell little jokes here and there, but that was the Oscars. That was a setting where the man was invited there to receive the highest achievement in his professional career. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, here's where we have to understand something. We are under the influence that because something has always been done, it's always been good.
That it's okay.
At one point, it was acceptable to own black people. At one point, it was acceptable to do a bunch of things. What we have to understand is at some point, am I, in the way I do my job, harming people? Right. There's a thing called professional responsibility.
Right.
Our artists need to do it. We need to do it. Matter of fact, I'm held at a standard that if I'm not careful, I could literally be criminally charged or civilly sued because I wasn't responsible in how I deal with a client. So, in essence, that same responsibility. If the words I'm saying is causing harm, the fact that I've been given a license to say it doesn't trump that to me.
Right.
Because I'm doing comedy. Now, prime example. It used to be comedic license to go after the LGBTQ community.
Can't do that now.
It's no more comic license. Why? Because they have established unapologetically that we are not for it anymore.
Right.
Okay, so the average comedian now, Dave Chappelle somehow survived it, but Dave Chappelle is on a whole nother level. And it was also understood by anybody with a critical thought is that he never came for them in the first place. He was actually speaking out on their behalf, but he was making a point, and he had the right to make the point. He never made little of anybody. He never belittled anybody. He never degraded anybody. Matter of fact, he spoke of a relationship he had with a transgender person whose death hurt him.
Yeah.
Okay, so but what he was showing though is that even when you're not actually attacking, people can be triggered.
Right.
Now, some of it is false triggering because there's a whole big thing where all you gotta do is say something and it's homophobic, transphobic,
of course, right.
But the point is, what used to be licensed in comedy isn't licensed anymore, and that's expanding. You can't talk about certain groups in comedy without paying a consequence. And so my thing is, what that's telling you is a part of it is, yeah, people are more sensitive to things now, but also, do I want to be responsible for a person who I go a little too hard on going home and killing themselves?
Right. I also find it interesting that we kind of make these excuses, or we offer these explanations in defense of ridicule of black people or disproportionate punishment of black people, while kind of ignoring like other groups who are allowed to set those boundaries, like you're saying, because most people, I don't see too many people speaking out hard body against this whole you're not allowed to say anything or critique anything transgender. You're not allowed to critique anything J word, that group. You know what I'm talking about, or else you're anti.
You say that word, the fire of hell rain down on you.
Right. So everyone is allowed to. Everyone is allowed to establish clear boundaries that you do not touch lest you be judged, except for us.
Right. You can shit on black people all day long.
Yeah, we've always been the butt of the joke because it's okay. We've been doing it all along.
You don't have other black people saying, sit there and take it. That's what
Yes.
you're supposed to do. It's expected. But everybody else is steady expanding the parameters of what they're going to accept, and it's being respected. But we don't understand.
I do have a question though. Have you noticed a difference in reaction to the Will Smith slap between married people and or married women and unmarried women?
Oh, yeah. You know me, I'm always doing studies. So I've been collecting data. As a general rule, there's still some married women who thought it was a little overboard. For the most part, married women are saying my husband better come to my defense. He better.
The majority of women that I've seen talk about it, married women, they get it.
While Marion, my wife, while Marion has evolved in her opinion as she's critiqued it as well, her initial response, yes, finally a black man stands up for a black woman. And what you got to understand is there's a whole hidden narrative in that we haven't even discussed here. The fact that most black women say they feel unsafe.
Unprotected.
And unprotected.
Right.
Okay, so you got to understand that. Now, in a marriage situation, Marion knows personally that I'm going hard in the paint. Nobody gets to Marion, not even her family, her dad. Nobody comes to Marion without coming through me. And nobody gets to come at her sideways or I'm coming for you. It's that simple. Because here's what I can tell you. We can talk all this, well, be professional, be all this. What I can tell you is that, and again, I'm not a fan of Jada, and Will and Jada may not be the best idea to have this conversation on, but it's who it happened to. So we're having a conversation. But I can tell you this. The moment that your wife feels like you didn't protect her, you lost her. You have lost. You can't lead her. You can't direct her. All you can do is come pay the bills and sit your ass down and shut up.
Yep.
That's it. Because you could not protect me. And I'll tell you, I had my first wife. And people get mad at me because I don't talk about her and I don't tell the whole story. So it's a lot of stuff that floats out there. You know why? I'm still protecting her in a certain way because she's the mother of my children. I'm not going to dog her. I'm not going. But when I was with her, it was every reason in the book to let a bunch of stuff happen to her that should have happened to her because of just how she was. But I didn't let it happen because it was on my watch. Now, once I walked away, I won't be the person that tear you down, but I'm no longer the person that's responsible for making sure you're okay. But, and that's just being a man. And I don't think we get it because we're in a world now where men are competing with women. Yeah. We're in a world right now where it's black men against black women. So instead of seeing the need to protect, we're trying to show why she deserved it. We're trying to show why this happened. And black women are doing the same thing to black men. You know, he did. And we're losing the fact that without each other, we don't stand a chance.
And I think that whole thing runs into, it creates a quandary when you're dealing with men who have that primal instinct to protect their women. Because sometimes, I'm just being real, sometimes it doesn't always amount to words or just walking away. You got some men who are very protective of their women. You know what I'm saying? So that's just no longer a part of the conversation with a lot of people. And, you know, I think a lot of that stems from black people feeling unprotected and getting used to feeling unprotected.
Here's the final statement, and then everybody can close out. You just made the point I was about to make, so it's gonna make it real easy. When I got with my wife, she had been on her own forever. She had worked to heal. And she was actually my client. I worked with her for a period of time. She went her way, I went my way. And there was something about her when I worked with her that I saw in her that says she's going to come back across my path. And when she does, I'm going to take her hand. So we never dated. When she came back through, I said, I want to be with you. I want you to be my woman. And she said, are you serious? And she said, yes. And we hadn't dated or anything. It was a professional relationship. But when you're that close with somebody and working with them, you see who they are. And you see beyond any idea of perfection. So the things I saw, none of that was perfect. But I saw it and I say, that's it. But here's the thing. She had been on her own so long, raising her kids by herself, doing everything by herself, everything, that when I came in, I put that protection around her. She fought it. I was, you know, you're controlling. No, you can go anywhere you want to, but just let me know you're okay when you get there. Everybody's not out to get me. I know, but I'm going to make sure that they got to come through me first.
Right.
There was a bunch of toxic bull crap within the family that was constantly eating at her that she didn't know how to say no to. I shut all that down. Now she's starting to get it, and it's still because I've had to defend myself for all that time. I got used to being unprotected, so your protection is foreign to me.
But yeah, true.
So you got a lot of women that are responding to this because protection is foreign.
Yeah,
You got a lot of men responding to it because being a protector
it's foreign to them.
We're in a culture right now where the black man has been commodified. It's all about what you can do with your wallet. Can you pay all my bills? Can you give me the life I want? Can you do this here? Can you do that? It doesn't say, can you protect? Can you lead? Can you be an advisor? Can you be a teacher? Can you be a spiritual and emotional covering? All these things are what men are supposed to be doing holistically. That's what we teach our boys that black men lead, is that it's not just about what you got in your wallet, because you got a bunch of men with a lot of paper that's mishandling our women because they can pay the bills.
That's right.
Okay, that's a problem because all they know, well, I got to have somebody take care of me. Well, no, you're supposed to still be under your father's covering till the right guy comes around, and he's supposed to come through your father. You know what the problem is? That ain't even that. And we can get into that whole conversation. So it's a bunch of things that's not right in this community that makes this conversation hard to have because people are speaking from places of hurt that they don't even realize they're hurt.
True.
Doc, you go ahead and close it out. I'm done.
No, I just want to thank Tony for being our celebrity entertainment guru, content knowledge expert. I've just been soaking it all in as usual. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate everything you've talked about today, man.
Well, I appreciate you brothers bringing me on. Sorry about my lateness. I wasn't sure of the time, but it's always a pleasure engaging in these discussions with you. I think at the end of the day, if we all just try to look at things from the perspective of others, it might make it a little bit easier to communicate on these topics, because a lot of times, with most of the conversation I've had, not only on this issue with Will Smith and Jada Smith, but a lot of issues, it seems like when you're trying to engage in productive discussion on these types of issues that affect our relationships, most people engage just for the purpose of their point being heard without listening to what the other person has to say. You ever have a conversation with someone and they stop to let you talk, but they're just waiting for you to finish so they can go ahead and double down on what they're saying, and that's detrimental to authentic communication. So
absolutely,
I always try to look for how another person is feeling. Try to empathize with them just so I can get a better understanding of can we arrive at some type of mutual understanding. So if we do a little bit more of that, I think we'll find ourselves getting more on one page.
Absolutely.
Awesome. On that note, once again, Tony, man, it's always good, and we're connecting on some things outside of this, and so I'm excited about all that. To everybody, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, support the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project, especially with Black Man Lead, which ties into everything we discussed today. We had some conversation about the importance of dealing with our young Black boys and young Black girls. The link to support that is in the description box. You can either do it through the link or you can do it through our organization's Cash App account, but we definitely need your support. On that note, I'm gonna get ready to check out of here. Guys, hang on. We're gonna close everything out after we get this off. So thank you.